Yo, and welcome back to Semen Retention. We talk about all things semen retention here and men's improvement, spirituality, all different things. But yeah, today I want to talk about I've been watching the original Men in Black, number one and two. I thought it was really interesting. They've got those devices, the little pens that flash people's memories and make them forget about everything. And it made me kind of think about how semen retention is like the reverse of those neutralizers. And then when I watched number two, I forgot about this whole scene because I hadn't watched it in about 20 years. But basically, in number two, there is a moment where they deneutralize one of the agent's brains. And the whole purpose of deneutralizing is about remembering all those things, is about getting those memories back, those skills that you once had, understanding how to communicate, your knowledge and all that kind of stuff comes back to you. And I thought it was interesting the way that it kind of panned out within those movies is that, these guys are kind of chosen to be part of this organization. They've gotten a calling to be part of the Men in Black, to do these kind of like high risk kind of activities for the government, obviously. And then they eventually get to a point where like they're trying to maneuver through the public and they've got to, flash people's memories and all that kind of stuff for seeing things like aliens and stuff because they don't want it to spread. But what I realized is that there's a couple of factors in this that relate to semen retention and our journey on semen retention. And the first thing is the neutralization of the people's brains. Okay, so what that is if you think about it, people in this lifetime are kind of, I guess, either ignorantly or acceptingly neutralizing their brains, okay, in one way or another. Sorry. So the main thing is basically when it comes down to things like food and drinks that we consume and obviously the media that we consume, we are neutralizing our brains. We're consuming this kind of content online that has no substance to it. I try and keep my videos very, concise as to what I want to say. And if I am running on a flow kind of state of mind, I will eventually tap into something else and spit something that I wasn't actually going to prepare for. It just came through the act of talking, the act of like using this organ as an instrument and then eventually playing some notes that sound really cool. And I'm like, oh, let's riff on that for a bit, okay? So that for me, I feel like music is a way of deneutralizing your brain. Semen retention definitely deneutralizes your brain. Whereas the food, the drinks, the media that we consume and the lust, those kind of activities and stuff like that, those are the things that are neutralizing your brain. Going back to Men in Black, there's a whole thing about how Kay, who's played by Tommy Lee Christians or Tommy Lee Jones or whatever his name is, he like basically he stuffed up a mission earlier in his career because he fell in love with someone in the process, and that put the whole planet at risk. And I won't get into spoilers if you haven't seen it, but to be honest, the movie's been out for 20 years, so I'm just going to say it, okay? So, no, I'm not going to say it. But essentially, he stuffed up his mission because he was with this woman or whatever. And he let his emotions get in the way of his purpose, which was to be a man in black, part of the Men in Black. And one thing that I think we got to understand as people on semen retention is we got to not undervalue our purpose. We got to not undervalue ourselves and what we can achieve when we do stay on the narrow path and keep our head down and focus on the one thing that, God or the universe or our inner Christ kind of being is pulled us towards. And I found that like okay, so here's a couple of stages of semen retention. When you get past like the 2 week kind of place, you start to anchor yourself down into the earth more. You start to feel a bit more weight and grounded, and you're a bit more slower. You're smarter with your decision making. Imagine everyone is on the highway. They're speeding through the highway. They're changing the lanes and all that kind of stuff. They're just trying to get to the next part. They got to beat every single car. They think they're in Mario Kart or something. But basically what happens is you're the smart driver. You're sitting there, but you're looking far ahead. You're looking like kilometers ahead of time, and you can see the truck there. You can see the road that's going to turn in and be closed off. So then that all those cars are going to have to maneuver into that lane. And you're making a wise decision, just being like, okay, out of the probability of all this here, I'm going to stay in this lane. And I'm going to be relaxed because I don't want to impact the environments around me. And a lot of the time, if you do stuff like that, you're going to notice that that car that was zipping around trying to get in front of you and all that kind of stuff, they don't really get anywhere. All they do is add stress to their lives. Whereas when you're on semen retention, you're just like relaxed. And I think that's the testosterone that's kind of, it's oozing through your system, and it's like helping you just relax in all frontiers. Now, sorry to anyone that's listening to me and thinking my voice is a bit off. I played 2 really long sets on Saturday, which was basically 6 hours of singing, and I kind of busted my voice a bit. I'm also having some sinus kind of things as of late, and a little bit of a, cold-like symptoms, but I don't feel sick. And I want to bring this up as a point as well. Part of deneuralizing your brain, part of cleansing your soul and all that kind of stuff on semen retention, you're going to start to have these kind of symptoms where your body is going to react. And I think a lot of this is part of this kind of purification process. If you think about things like skin issues, a lot of the time, you've probably seen in my previous videos where I've got these kind of like pimples and stuff like that here and breaking out and all that kind of stuff. A lot of the time that's not such a bad thing, so to say. It's just saying, your body's just basically saying, I'm releasing all this toxic garbage that I had inside you, and I'm going to pour it out through these pores in your nose, and I'm going to pour it out through your pores in your forehead, through your chin and all that kind of stuff, and I'm going to just push it out of there. And what that does is it creates the pimples, so all these toxins and stuff are releasing through your skin, right? And eventually what you're going to do is you're going to be like, okay, cool. Well, I've stopped eating those junk foods and now my skin's reacting. Hang on a second, I thought I was meant to be getting better skin. Well, here's the thing that you got to realize when you're on semen retention, okay, is that the patience of trusting the process is more important than what kind of symptoms or things you're going through in the current moment are occurring. So for example, if you feel all those benefits in the first 2 weeks, you feel that grounding presence that I talked about before, like you feel that grounding, energy into the ground, you feel a bit more confident, you feel stronger, you feel more energetic. But then there's going to be a flip side to that. And then there's going to be the flip side, which is your energy's too high. You start waking up in the night at about, 1 a.m. when you got to bed at 10 p.m. You woke up after 3 hours of sleep and you're like, I'm buzzing. What do I do now? Well, again, you're going to have to trust that process. You're going to have to just work through that kind of that negative experience of the evolutionary process. You got to have a bit of the benefits whilst also having some of the, I guess you could say, post or pre-benefits, transitory stages within semen retention. Transitory meaning that they are just a kind of a growth spurt, a growing pain that you have to go through to get to the next level of semen retention. Now, my first long streak, which I documented on this channel, was 15 months. And that was a long time. I'd done up to 70 days before that. And then I got on to 15 and a half months. Right now, I'm kind of coming up to a month. That's after my 15 months kind of streak broke. So basically, I found that after that first kind of resetting of the streak, I kind of realized that was like, I felt all those physical benefits kind of fade away very quickly, and it felt like pain and all that kind of stuff. But now I'm kind of working up again, and it's all regenerating again. And yeah, I just think about it, and it's kind of like this thing that like you gotta ride through all those processes. So just some food for thought. Just remember that all these kind of changes that you're going to go through, as your brain starts to rewire itself, as you quote unquote deneutralize your brain, you're going to have some symptoms. Like you're going to have headaches. You're going to have times where you're just like, oh, I just need to like go out and buy some ice cream and some chips and just eat some junk food for a change because, I just need to like find some comfort in some food or something like that because this is just too intense. Just do whatever it is that you need to do to, I guess, feel your way through the process, but don't relapse and don't release. Like, don't go find a girl and release because you're so desperate or anything like that. It's like you got to learn from that process. Or if you haven't done that before and say you're just attracting a girl for the first time in your life, go do that. Go experience it for what it is. I'm sure you'll come back to it and realize, okay, well, it is what it is, wasn't really worthwhile. But like, in my opinion, I think it's better to just maybe do something like food, watch movies, like maybe, I don't know, go spend a little money and go karting or something like that, just do something that's going to take your mind off that process, okay? So, pardon me. This whole thing that I've also realized, it's coming back to internal and external cleansing. So when we're talking about like deneutralizing your brain, this is also something that is going to affect you on the physical and the external realm. So when you deneutralize your brain, you're going to start to look around at your environment. Right now, I'm looking at my studio and I'm like, this place needs a bit of love right now. I haven't been in here a lot. I've been mostly working out in the other rooms. But this place needs to be kind of, prepped up a bit. But, that's a cleansing process in itself, okay? I go clean my garden, do that. That's good, okay? I do things like fasting yesterday. I did a long fast till about probably 4 o'clock or something like that. And I didn't drink or eat during that whole time for about, I don't know what it was, 16, 18 hours. Not a huge fast, but it was a fast nonetheless. And I did just basically walk around the house and cleaned up my whole backyard and all that kind of stuff. And then what I realized about semen retention combined with fasting as well is that you start to eat away at the things of yourself that need to be devoured, digested, and released for good. So, for example, these might be habits that are still, they're still tapping you on the shoulder and being like, oh, hey, like maybe just a little bit would be good. Those are the kind of things that during the act of semen retention combined with fasting, you're going to start cleansing away you're going to wipe off that grime, Yesterday I spent a long time cleaning my car just by hand, and it feels nice to have things that are clean, shiny, and look good because it's a representation of yourself, right? I got a haircut today, I've got a photo shoot later on, so I've just got to present myself good and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, the whole semen retention and combine it with fasting here and there, you're going to be cleansing a lot of things out of your system. And as I'll reiterate once again, this cleansing process isn't just like you're mopping the floor and the dirt's gone. No. This is you're sweeping the floor and then there's, a little bit of grime on the floor and then you try and mop it and it's not there. And then you got to get out the sponge and then you got to really put some work in it and you feel the pain of working hard on to remove something, right? So sometimes that deepness of the scar is something that you're going to have to really dig in and like really clean it out because it's probably been infected. It's probably too toxic. It's probably too negative vibration, It's an addiction that you've held on for too long and you just got to really go in there and clean it as much as you can. Okay. I think I might leave it at that for today. We're going to deneutralize our brains on semen retention. So if you just look into here and